Oh, good afternoon, everybody. Karen Curitan, social media trainer, here, as you can see, with the lovely Becs McNeill. Good afternoon, Becs.
Hello.
So we've just been comparing notes on the blooming awful British weather. So you're in the northwest, aren't you?
Yes, so I'm right on the cusp of the north of Cheshire, south of Lancashire.
All right.
So
Okay.
20 minutes
Yeah.
outside Manchester, about half an hour outside Liverpool. So
God.
on that kind of M62 kind of
Yeah.
thoroughfare.
Yeah. Actually, I used to spend quite a lot of time up that way in a previous life. My old
That
old
sounds
company I used
intriguing.
No, the company I used to work for forever ago used to have their northwest offices near Haydock.
Oh, yes, we are literally probably 15 minutes from Haydock on
Yeah, it
the
was so
A580.
interesting. I was visualizing where you were. So anyway, the reason I am live here today with Bex is that she and I were introduced by the fabulous Sheridan Webb, who we both know. Um, I know Sheridan through the Trainer Talk community, which I'm in, which is full of trainers and coaches. But Sheridan also has her own community, which is the Training Designers Club. How do you
Yeah.
know her then, Bex?
So I think we must have met at networking many, many moons ago. But she and I have been working together for quite some time to monetize her knowledge and expertise, really. So trying to keep her doing the thing that she's brilliant at, which is the delivery and the front end and all of that kind of stuff, and simplifying and optimizing everything on the back end for her so that she can spend her time doing what she's doing.
Which is actually a great way of starting to introduce you, because we actually know each other from a previous life again. In that you went to university with my sister-in-law. I mean, how random is this? It's
Yeah.
just that degrees of separation is just, they say, don't you? You know everybody in the world by 7.
Yeah.
You know, my claim was to the late Queen by 1.
Oh,
Because I was in an advert. You having to share it. I must be
is
getting
this like the most tenuous link there's
most
ever going to be?
tenuous connection. I was in an advert forever, long before the current Mr. Curitan, with the late Cilla Black.
Oh, wow.
So there you go. So anybody watching here going, what on earth is Karen going off on? I don't know. Maybe I've had too much coffee. But yes, so you and I know each other through Sheridan, and Sheridan is probably a classic example of the type of person that you work with.
Yeah.
So tell everybody a little bit more about your business, Bex, who you
Okay.
work with, and how you what is your particular niche, I suppose.
Okay. So it's been a long time I've been in this online space. It's about 14 odd years now. So I've seen a few things, tried lots of different stuff, worked with lots of different people. And over that time, what's happened, as with most businesses, is that my niche found me as opposed to me finding my niche. I like to work with creative people who want to be creative. So coaches, creatives, and freedom-focused folk, I suppose I call them, is that they want to be spending their time doing the things that they love, and they've got knowledge and they've got expertise that they have very naturally, and they don't always realize that what they do others can't do or they don't know. So I always say to people that, your knowledge isn't always common knowledge, because they kind of think, well, if I know this, then surely everybody knows this, but quite often they don't. So I work with lots of people that have knowledge, skills, expertise in lots of different areas, and helping them to monetize that in a way that gives them freedom. So freedom is one of our biggest values within my community, because we're big believers in that, life is for living as opposed to being out there constantly working all hours. And there's stories behind why that's so important to me, which some of you, if you already know of me, will know that anyway. But for me, life's too precious to be constantly doing and doing and doing if you don't look up and experience it and have some fun along the way. And I've found that over the years, so many of those brilliant, talented people who were experts in their field kind of got caught up in all of the nonsense of actually running the business, because they're brilliant at what they do, but when you work for yourself, you've then got to be a marketing manager, you've got to know all the latest systems, you've got to be able to do everything as well as. So I'm a systems kind of girl, and I don't just mean software, but I mean sort of organization systems, that kind of stuff. And anything that makes life easier is something that I'm a massive fan of. So I love automation. I like ways to leverage things. So I've kind of combined all of that to help people create assets of their knowledge and their expertise, as opposed to them delivering constantly. So we use systems, we use sales processes to then get that out to people. So we're basically getting them to earn their income that they want while making an impact, but without burning themselves out all the time.
And that is phenomenally powerful to be able to do that. And really oddly, when I was out and about last week, and I had my Kindle with me, and I started finally reading Atomic Habits.
Yes, it's a brilliant read.
And I struggle with business books because I've got the attention span of a gnat. And a lot of them are quite hard work. But one of the things that really resonated, and you've just used the exact word, was about everybody talks about goals. And in Atomic Habits, James Clear talks, about, we talk about goals, we're setting our targets, this one to achieve. But actually, you need systems in place to achieve that. And that's where you sort of sit then, isn't it?
Yeah, I love finding the simplest ways. And what I've noticed over the years is us humans, we overcomplicate everything. I don't know why we feel like everything's got to be hard work all the time. And I kind of have this inner, I think it might be the inner child that kind of goes, well, this is a lot of effort. Why are we doing it like this? And trying to find ways to either simplify it or systemize it, really. Because generally, if there's a system or a process behind something, it's going to happen. And I think so many people are spinning so many plates when they work for themselves that unless we put some of those systems and foundations in place, you're constantly just reacting rather than being proactive about then growing your business. So you're just in amongst the weeds constantly, and not actually then looking up, growing it, looking at ways to simplify it, to optimize it, that kind of thing.
And it is a challenge, and you're absolutely right. And you touched on it there, is that I work with probably, 85% of my clients are women in business.
Yeah.
And they are being mum, wife, cook, housekeeper, head of HR, head of operations, accounts department, marketing. And that's before they even actually sitting down and doing their job.
Yeah.
And I think, that's a typical, that's a very old school sort of household. I had the big career and then stopped because we had a family, and we'd waited a long time to have a family. I didn't want to go back into that corporate world. And, I think a lot of us end up in places for different reasons. But a lot of the women, particularly, sorry to any guys watching this, is a lot of the women that I work with are so busy, as you say, juggling everything. They're being busy fools. Can I say that?
Yeah. And it is, we focus on, I always say to my crew, stop masturbating, because they think there's all these things that they must be doing. But actually, the 80-20 rule applies to the vast majority of everything. It's like, let's stop. Let's have a look at what's actually getting you the results that you want, or the feeling that you want, or the outcome that you want. And let's look at those as opposed to the things that you keep being told by all these experts that are out there you should do. And I like kind of personalizing stuff for people. I'm not a big fan of blueprints because I don't think that they apply to everybody. And so many people are trying to squeeze themselves into these blueprints and roadmaps, when actually a lot of what they're trying to do is a lot simpler. So I'm also very nosy. So I tend to ask so many questions when somebody's like going, I need some help. I'm like, okay, so what's this and what's this and what's this? So that I can get underneath it and go, well, you just need this and this.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Simplify everything. And those atomic habits that you were talking about are really key, especially when you are so busy, is if you can sort of start to habit stack. So if you're sitting having your morning coffee and it's something that you already do, then go and engage in LinkedIn for that half an hour while you're having your coffee, so that you're doing two of the same things at the same time. Or let's find ways to repurpose this content that you've got, because you spent all this time creating this amazing course, but it's also several blog posts, it's also social media, it's also various different digital products in its own right. It's not just one thing. So things have to earn their keep. They have to, serve multiple purposes. So creating leverage, creating automation, creating whatever we can to make life easier and more enjoyable for us wherever possible.
And I think that's absolutely true, because we are here but for a brief time, and it's all of us have lost people that we care about, and I think it makes you take a step back. And quite interesting, I was at a breakfast networking this morning for my charity that I'm ambassador for, and everybody's to say, what are you going to stop doing and what are you going to do more of this year? And everybody said, I'm going to stop drinking. And I said, well, okay, does drinking make you happy? I'm not an alcoholic ambassador. I'm not going to be saying you should be drinking lots of alcohol, but actually, if it gets you to relax and enjoy, and social thing, and you enjoy it, and in moderation, it makes you feel good. But what was really interesting was, and this is so interesting that we were having this chat today, is the number of people that said to me, I'm wasting time. Wasting time. And I realized this week, because I took a step back last week, and I'm looking at my lead magnets. They've sat there like the unwanted toy on the shelf. That I set it up because it seemed like a good idea at the time. I've done too much. It's too, there's too much going on. I can't possibly keep them up to date, and it's not top of my list. But actually, the sensible thing is, if I had a couple of things that were doing the job well, and I had good automations in place. And I think a lot of business owners, so I'm going to share this with you, and I hope she doesn't mind. A very valued former client of mine last week left me a voice note on Facebook Messenger saying, Karen, I've been speaking to somebody today about my email marketing, and they've said I should have an ebook. What do you think? And I went back to her and said, that's at the sort of end. How are you attracting people currently? Where's your list now? How many people have you got on your list? I haven't got anybody on my list. So we're starting with an ebook that actually you're not posting consistently on your social media channels. You're not doing any other marketing. There's no optimization on your website to get people there. So why spend the effort creating an ebook now? I said to her, I think we're a couple of months away from an ebook.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. People get attracted to the new shiny, don't we?
Yeah.
So,
but we are always being told that we need this, we need that, we need the other. And actually, for some businesses, they just don't need that. And they get sold systems and they get sold this, that, and the other that they just don't need. And I spend a lot of time unpicking stuff for people, because they've got so much going on. And I go, right, okay, well, that could be moved into here, and streamlining it and that kind of thing, because they don't always join the dots. We're sort of doing so many different things, but we don't know how this bit joins to this bit, joins to this bit. And I think what I try and show people is the whole kind of process, from start to finish in terms of the sales, so that they can see, why am I doing this bit here? Why am I putting this effort in here for it to come through? So I've got this pipeline of people coming through my network so that I can then potentially convert somebody at the end. But there's always leaky holes in these buckets that people have got, and we try and sort of put it all together, make sure that it's all actually working properly, so that they've actually got something that works for them. Because I think there's always that danger of going, well, I've done this lead magnet, but I've only had a few people sign up for it, so move on and do something else. It's like, well, you haven't actually told anybody really that exists.
Oh, you're
So
preaching.
let's get some people into it, please.
Oh my word, you're preaching to the converted, actually, because I've just had an email today. I've applied for a grant, and because where we live, class is quite rural, and apparently there's not that many people applied for it, so keeping everything crossed. And I'm planning a campaign that will drive people to my new lead magnet, because the number of people that create lead magnets, and I'll regularly have this conversation with clients, say, well, how are you going to take them on a journey from becoming aware and interested in what you do to take the next steps to working with you, whether that's some sort of digital online offering or however you do it. How are you getting them to communicate with you?
Yeah.
Well, I've got a lead magnet. Okay, so I haven't seen your lead magnet. Oh, well, how often should I be putting my lead magnet out there? Well, as many times as you can.
More than you think you should.
Yes, yes. Which brings me to some tips, though, because there is so much. I feel as though we could talk all afternoon, and we have spoken before, and I find it really interesting listening to your expertise. Somebody's listening to this, and this will be shared in my newsletter. It's going in my newsletter as well.
Cool.
Planning my newsletter for this week. Is that if somebody's sitting here thinking, well, where do I start? What tips would you give somebody who's just starting to think, how could I get more traction, more leverage from what I'm doing?
I would definitely stop and have a look at what's already working. What kind of things is it that people are actually engaging with? Again, because I work definitely with a lot of people who are creatives and creators, they're not always great completer finishers. So they have all these ideas and they start things moving along, but then they kind of get bored and move off somewhere else. So really auditing what you know, auditing what you have already, because you've probably got an awful lot of stuff that just isn't working for you. So before you go out looking for the new latest thing that you've got to create, be honest about what you've got. Then I would have a look at the actual journey and the outcome that you want to get for people and how you want to work with them, so that you can then start to build this kind of step by step. So if they do this, what next? If they do this, what do I want them to do next? And start to look at that end goal, and then you can reverse engineer it into small actionable steps, because I think the vast majority of people just say to me, well, I know I want this thing, but I don't know how to make it happen. And for me, that's very, very simple to do. I just kind of go, oh, you need to do this, 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 and this. And so they often say, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. So by reverse engineering it, you kind of go, well, if I've got to have that done by then, what do I need to do by then? And you create your action plan by reverse engineering everything. And keep it as simple as possible. Simple things done well is the key.
Yeah.
Most definitely.
And just one last thing I want to ask you. Out of all of the toys that you play with, the business toys, do you have a favorite?
Oh, yeah, well, I do, but for so many different reasons.
You choosing between your two kids, you can't have a favorite.
No, it's like, and this is the thing, because there's so many tools out there, and this is why people get kind of caught up in it, is because this is great for this and this is great for this, but they don't always link and work together. Actually, probably the thing, apart from AI at the minute, which is just amazing, but I would say things like, well, it is a form of AI, something like Zapier or Made, which integrates systems and gets them to talk to each other. Because quite often what happens is, like I've said, you've got a piece of software here or a process here, but it doesn't link up with this. And if we can find ways to get them to link, then it's going to make things so much easier. But there's so many that I use. And if you head over to my website, I've got my tips and tricks section, which is all how to do this and how to do that, little bite-sized snippets of making life easier.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Well, Becs, thank you so much for joining me today.
Pleasure.
It's been absolutely wonderful. I'm going to pop Beck's website address and her LinkedIn link under this live, and I will speak to you soon, because I'm still convinced I need your help with some of my stuff. So once I get this grant, we'll chat again. But thank you for your time today.
Pleasure. No, it's lovely to see you.
Thanks a lot.
Bye.